Greek fables were not like our novels, which were intended as stories and not as histories. There are no ancient histories other than these fables. A quote by Bernard Le Bouvier de Fontenelle from his 1724 essay, The Origin of Fables, the inspiration for Napoleon Bonaparte's famous "What is history but a fable agreed upon?" Historians often have a hard job discovering the truth of the past due to biased accounts of the victor. Important details are often left out and forgotten over time. On a larger scale, how could we be sure that any of it happened at all? How could it be proven that everything, every person and every memory you have, every photo you've taken didn't simply spring into existence last week, yesterday, or 5 minutes ago? Last Thursdayism is the belief that the whole universe and everything in it was created last Thursday. It can't be proven wrong as any evidence as part of the everything that was created last Thursday. This non-falsifiability pushes last Thursdayism from the realm of science into the realm of philosophy. We can normally exclude last Thursdayism as a possibility thanks to the principles of Occam's razor, which poses that when faced with opposing hypotheses, we should choose the answer with the least assumptions. For example, there are fewer assumptions in believing the Earth is billions of years old and we just happen to be alive in this current period, rather than assuming the Earth, all our memories, and our entire lives simply sprouted into existence last Thursday. So, although being an interesting theory, we can probably write off last Thursdayism. But what if we took a similar logic and applied it out from our very being? What if the universe and everything in it is purely here because we thought of it? Epistemology is the theory of knowledge. Plato posed that things we know are things that are true, that we believe, and that we have justification for believing in. Rational knowledge is based on proof, however proven isn't a synonym of true. Things that we know a priori are a knowledge that proceeds from theoretical deduction rather than from observation or experience. For example, if today is Tuesday, then today is not Friday. I have good reasons for believing this is true, but the reasons do not appear to derive from experience. Rather, I am able to apprehend the truth of the claim by reflection on the content. I can say cubes have 6 sides without needing to have experience of all cubes, as I'm cognizant that in order for something to be classified as a cube, it must have 6 sides. Although we have theories for how the universe was created and why everything is here and the way it is, we can never know if they're true. Even proven theories could be a creation of our own mind. Descartes posed that we can never claim absolute certainty about the existence of anything beside ourselves. The only thing we cannot be deceived of is our own existence, due to the fact that any thoughts, no matter how true or false, undeniably prove that you exist. Cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. The egocentric predicament is a term coined by Ralph Barton Perry referring to the fact that we are alone in our brain. Every truth of the world is perceived through the lens of our own mind. Proprioception is the sense that allows us to detect where our hands and other limbs are, even whilst our eyes are closed. Other people may be able to see, touch, taste, smell, or hear something similar to us. However, it's these inner senses that prescribe an advanced awareness of our being. Charles Sanders Peirce created a divide between the real world and what he coined as the phaneron, the world filtered through our minds. An example of the difference between the real world and our phaneron is colour perception. Unlike gravity or protons, colour does not exist in the outside world. Instead, colour is created in the brain by converting a range of the electromagnetic spectrum into colour. How can we know that when 2 people see the colour red, one person isn't seeing what they call red, and the other person isn't seeing what they'd also call red, but what the first person would call black? Obviously, differences in colour perception occurs with conditions relating to colour blindness, but what if there are differences we can't pick up on? We might never know how different a single encounter between 2 people truly might be. It could be argued that if this were the case, wouldn't people argue that some colours are better than others, or some are more complementary? The answer is yes, that would happen. But isn't that what happens already? This shows how fundamentally, in terms of our perceptions, we are all alone in our minds. The hypnotist Anthony Jack Quinn describes in his work Reality is Plastic how a participant can fully adopt changes made to their world, from having their feet stuck to the floor to having their name replaced with something outlandish, as once their phaneron changes, they fully internalize what the hypnotist has done to them and it becomes their reality. To an audience it could be amusing, but the participant is completely isolated in their own world. Hermeticism is a philosophical tradition based primarily upon writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. The essence of the teachings by Hermes are found in the Kybalion, which devotes a chapter to each of its 7 principles, the foremost being the principle of mentalism and the principle of correspondence. The principle of mentalism embodies the idea that all is mind. Everything that happens has to be a result of a mental state which precedes it. For anything to exist, thoughts had to form first, which then form physical reality. The principle of correspondence expresses the idea that there is always a correspondence between the laws of phenomena in the various planes of being and with life, denoted by the proposition, as above, so below, as below, so above. Where a hypnotist would suggest that we are living in reality and changing our phanerons accordingly, this belief would pose the opposite, that our mind is the reality and the real world adjusts around us. If you were to take a second and stare at something stationary and just focus on being you, it feels like you're an actual thing, something else hiding inside a body that you can look out of, a perspective which nobody on the earth would be able to see from. This awareness is what's known as consciousness, but how would I know that you have this same sense of being? I know that I do, but for all I know, you could be another creation of my mind. The view that the self is all that can be known to exist is referred to as solipsism, the total opposite to realism, the view that the world is real and it's impossible to disprove. Qualia or equality as perceived by a person is the ineffable raw feelings we experience by being alive. Things like pain, emotions, colours, something we could give a vague description of, but impossible to actually describe. This inability to connect physical phenomenon to raw feelings is known as the explanatory gap. Daniel Dennett said that the fact that qualia are a private experience is a result of the failure of our own language, similar to the Speer-Whorf hypothesis in linguistic relativity, suggesting that the structure of a language determines a native speaker's perception of experience. Joseph Giordania's book, Who Asked the First Question, covers the interesting fact that despite apes being able to adopt sign language to interact with humans, no ape has ever asked a question. That isn't to say that apes and other animals are not curious, however they lack a theory of mind, an understanding that other people have separate minds and therefore could access knowledge that you may be lacking. The Sally-Ann test includes a scenario involving 2 people, Sally and Anne, as well as a box and a basket. Sally puts something into the box and leaves the room. Anne then takes it out the box and puts it into the basket. Sally then comes back into the room. To pass the test, children must recognise she would go to check the box for the object. However, up to the age of 4, they assume she will automatically check the basket because they don't recognise that her access to information can be different from their own. It's thought that apes share the same thinking process. This isn't the first comparison between animal minds and the minds of young children, but the fact that young children grow and develop their understanding is what sets them apart. Benjamin Hare defined the limit of what people and different species can comprehend as the understanding line. Below the line are things that we can learn, and above it are things we can't even comprehend. For the ape, below the line is things like food, climbing, how to breed. Above the line are things like languages, sciences, and theory of mind. Things as humans we can understand because they're below our line, along with economics, agriculture, technology. But we don't know what's above our line. We can't begin to fathom it. This leads to 2 types of truth that we don't know. Things we don't understand yet, but could, and things we don't understand yet and never can. For example, if we read a page in a language we haven't learned yet, it wouldn't mean anything to us, but we can learn it and eventually reach a stage where it means something. But there's also things that as humans we don't understand and can potentially never learn. Systems after maths to better understand the universe, grand structures to creation we can't discern, solutions to quantum gravity. The answers could be staring us in the face and we might never be able to understand them or even notice them. The mathematician Martin Gardner once stated, "If you ask me to tell you anything about the nature of what lies beyond the Phaneron, my answer is how should I know? I'm not dismayed by the ultimate mysteries. I can no more grasp what's behind such questions as my cat can understand what's behind the clatter I make whilst I type this paragraph."